I mean, he was the youngest. He won his first world title at 21. Youngest super welterweight champion. Yep. Does that bring a little pressure?
I tell people this all the time, man. I get asked this that all the time. You know, I just feel like I do better under pressure. You know, so put pressure on me. You know, so pressure could either make diamonds or bust pipes.
What is good, Danger Zone Boxing Talk? It is your host, BC Left Hook, along with my co-host, Twine B. Livity. Today, we are blessed to have Andrew Moloney here with us today. Andrew, I want to thank you for coming on the show, and hope your day is going well. So let's get right into it.
Wait, Malachi, you're not gonna do me like that, man.
Oh, my man, what do you want to say, man?
You already know what it is, man. You're gonna give us some respect today. Roll Tide!
Okay, man. All right. Congratulations on your college football team winning the national championship, but we're going to move on to something more relevant here today. Again, we have Andrew Moloney with us, the former WBA regular world champion. He had a fight. It was back in the summer. I think everybody remembers it quite well, in which I hate to use the term robbed, but it kind of felt that way. That's the way it went. I thought that the swelling came from a punch. I believe my co-host is in agreement with that.
Yes.
How did that feel, Andrew? Because you should have been champion again.
Yeah, that's right. First of all, thanks for having me on, guys. It's a pleasure to be back on with you both. Yeah, I mean, you're both very smart. It was from a punch, and we've got some very clear video footage to prove that. And hopefully, we can release that soon.
How did that feel, Andrew? Because
devastating. Because that 5 months in between the first fight and the second fight. That's all I thought about, was like every second of the day was getting revenge and winning that fight and getting my world title back. And I did absolutely everything possible to make sure that would happen. And I did what I needed to in the ring that night, and they took away that moment, which would have been just so special and so satisfying for myself.
Well, I mean, the funny thing is they're showing these replays live during the telecast. And like everybody's looking at this as far as the punch. I mean, nobody's seen a butt anywhere in there. And the ref still confirmed that it was a butt after 30 minutes.
Like, that's right. Crazy. They searched for almost 30 minutes trying to find a head clash. They couldn't find one, but yet they still stuck with that as their decision, which I just couldn't believe.
Now, do you think that was on the basis of trying to save the judges and the ref, or like just trying to save face, or like do you feel there was some other motive involved already?
No, I really don't know, but I think they were just trying to save face for the referee, Russell Mora, and it was stupid in my opinion. I mean, they had the opportunity to show how good an instant replay can be, and Nevada being the only commission in the world at the moment that has that instant replay working, it would have really been a great thing and really shined a light on their commission doing the right thing and being ahead of the field. But instead they made a mess of it and made themselves look terrible.
I definitely agree. It was definitely a negative highlight. Even your promoter, Bob Arum, he was livid about the decision. Can you go into details as far as what happened with the appeal process?
It's still going on at the moment. It's very slow. We're not getting much communication at all from the Nevada Commission, and that's in the hands of my lawyer at the moment. I'm just waiting for it to all go ahead. But my biggest thing right now is getting that third fight, the trilogy fight against Franco, organized. And I'm in the gym at the moment training hard for that because I know that's going to be coming up sometime early this year. And that's what my focus is on at the moment, is having that third fight and winning the fight this time, and just, clearing any doubt that I am the real champion and he doesn't deserve that belt.
Okay, so are those negotiations ongoing now, or it's already signed, sealed, and delivered?
No, still going on at the moment. We're trying to put things together to bring that fight to Australia. So my team's working hard at the moment to make that happen, and I really hope we can do that. After everything I've been through for the last few months, and traveled twice last year to America to fight Franco over there, so I think it's only right that we have the third fight in Australia where we can have live crowds and put on a huge event here and win my world title back in front of all my friends and family, which will make everything I've been through worthwhile. It'd be amazing.
Okay, I'll definitely come back to that. Will this trilogy fight have any effect on the appeals process that you're going through with your lawyer, or is it something that you're willing to drop as long as you get the third fight?
No, the appeal's still going ahead either way. But even if they do overturn the decision and I am crowned champion, I still want to have that third fight with Franco either way, and just win the fight in the ring and prove that I am the deserving champion.
Okay, I mean, so with the second fight you had with Franco, like, it's obvious you made adjustments from the first one to where you were dominant in the second fight. Do you feel like there's anything else you need to do going into the trilogy, since you're in training now, to put that stamp on it? Like, do you want to go for the knockout, or do you want to just kind of go with what you were doing that worked for you in the second fight?
Well, in the second fight, I believe I did win by knockout. That should have been a TKO victory for myself. That eye was shut with a jab, and I plan on doing the same thing next time. I made some huge improvements in between those two fights, and I was nowhere near at my best in that first fight. But I made some big improvements for the second fight, and I'm still in the gym now, improving every day. And I believe I'm going to bring even more to the table next time around and dominate the fight even clearer. And, if I can get the stoppage win and take it out of the judges' hands, then absolutely that's what I'm going to aim on and I plan to do.
Okay, so you mentioned the point in a previous question as far as the live attendance in Australia. What are the actual requirements or restrictions as far as live crowds in Australia right now, just so you can clear that up for the people listening?
Things are sort of changing week by week here in Australia, and each sort of state has different regulations, but we can definitely have a live crowd, even if it's not at full capacity. Indoor stadiums, I think, are around sort of 50% capacity. So if we have a large stadium, we can still have quite a good crowd there. And outdoor stadiums, even more. We can, I think we can, there was a Tim Zoo and Bowen Morgan had, I think, around 20,000 in attendance at an outdoor stadium. So there's no reason why we can't do those sort of numbers over here. And hopefully, that plays a big part in making that fight happen here in Australia.
Okay. I mean, we were definitely talking about this a little bit prior to starting the show. This could be one of the most monstrous cards of the year if they put it together right, as far as putting you on there with the Franco rematch, and the proposed Teofimo Lopez and George Kambosos fight, and of course Tim Tszyu being there in Australia as well. He's pretty much a mandatory now for a title, if I'm not mistaken. Is that something you think that will come about properly, or you're just more worried about your fight with Franco? Would you prefer to be the main event, or would you what would you prefer as far as the scenario?
Either way, all I care about is having this fight with Franco. Having in Australia would be a massive bonus. And if it's us headlining the show, or if the Teofimo Kambosos fight does happen, then that'd be a huge show here in Australia, and be a great thing for Australian boxing. That would be a mega card. We could put my brother on there as well, hopefully challenge possibly for a world title again, if not in another big fight. And then, as you said, maybe Tim Tszyu on the card as well. We got a lot of good talent in Australia at the moment, and I'm sure we can put on a huge show here, especially if Teofimo comes out, which will, be a great thing for Australian boxing because it's going to get a lot of viewers from everyone around the world, and we can really show how good Australian boxing can be.
Now, as far as negotiations with the trilogy fight, has there been any holdups as far as the location? Is that the biggest hang-up right now? Like Franco may not want to come to Australia, or is that something that's hindering negotiations?
I'm not really sure, to be honest. I mean, I'm not too involved in the whole negotiation part. I've been told that we're aiming for sometime around April. So I'm in the gym at the moment, working hard, and I've left that side of things to my team to organise. The fight has to happen. It's been mandated by the WBA that we have an immediate rematch. So not too sure where we're at and what their team's thoughts are, but I believe it is going to happen next. And where my team's working at the moment to try and organise that to be in Australia.
Okay.
So let's say that this fight does happen, this third fight, this trilogy, and the title, which we believe should have changed hands last fight, does change hands this fight. What's the likelihood that we would get that fourth fight? Because, those are the things of legend, the 3-4 fight series.
Yeah. I mean, if that's what the public wants, the fans want, my promoter, my team want to do, I got no problem fighting in 10 times. If that's a fight that everyone wants to see, then absolutely. We've got a good rivalry now. Looking forward to being involved in the trilogy first, and if it ends up turning into 4, 5, 6 times we fight again, then I got no problem with that.
So when we were talking before the show, I know you said your focus is on the next fight, but I just want to talk about a little bit about. You said that it wasn't just the bubble in Vegas that you had to go through. When you came home, you actually had to be quarantined for a week still. What that has to be really rough. And you come home and you think, man, the title should have been mine. Was there any point where you were worried you weren't going to get that rematch, or you just was real frustrated?
The first time coming home, we did have a meeting with Bob Arum before flying home, and he said we will do the rematch against Franco. But coming home and, sitting in the hotel room for 2 weeks, we got a hotel quarantine when we arrived back in Australia, and you can't leave your room at all. So you got a lot of time to play things over in your head. And, I was really worried that, maybe things wouldn't work out and I wouldn't have that opportunity to fight Franco again. So that was very tough, stressful times. And thankfully I did get the opportunity to have that second fight. And then again, what we went through, I believe I should have been coming home with that belt. And, I had a few days in America before leaving, and I sort of had some time to sort of realize what had happened and sort of calm down a little bit. But then flying back home, it sort of hit me again that I should be coming home with that belt. And that made it really tough again. And then sitting in the room for 2 weeks, just playing it over in my head what had just happened, and knowing that I should have been the champion once again was, very difficult. So that's just given me even more motivation to win this third fight and to make sure that they can't take it away from me this time.
Having seen him in the ring twice now, does that give you an even greater confidence that in this third fight, this one is totally yours and there's not going to be any doubt?
Yeah, absolutely. I was not at my best in the first fight. In the second fight, I was my usual self, and I felt that I was doing it easy. I was landing a lot of shots, starting to break him down, and obviously shut that eye with some great jabs. And I got full confidence that I can do that again next time. And the longer the fight goes on, the more in control I'm going to be, I believe. And I believe I have no doubt I'm going to win this third fight.
Let me chime in on that just to follow up. What were some of the things you felt affected you in the first fight?
Affected me in the first fight?
Yeah, was there something, the sickness, preparation, something, just anything that may have had you not at your best that night?
It wasn't a great preparation the first time around. With COVID sort of restrictions here, not really been able to get any sparring. And we organised some sparring in America, but it was only for a couple of weeks before the fight. So it wasn't a proper camp that I would normally have. And then as it's been out in the public, I perforated both my eardrums early on in that fight, and that really affected my balance and affected me from boxing, to my full ability. So it sounds like excuses, but they're the facts, and it affected me the first time around and made it difficult for me to box at my best.
Okay.
Agree. Now I noticed in the first fight, he seemed to as the fight wore on, be able to time you a little better coming in. In the second fight, you kind of took that away from him. And I like the work that you were doing on the inside as well. Was that something that you saw on tape? What did you guys see after the first fight that you could take advantage of in the second fight?
Plenty of things. I believe I'm an overall better boxer than what Franco is, and I know he's going to disagree with that, but I believe I have more assets to my game, and I can do a lot of different things, whereas he's got sort of the one style, which is effective. He's a good fighter. I'm not going to take that away from him or badmouth him. He's a good fighter. He's at the, we're at the top level in our division. But I just believe I'm a little bit better than he is in every department. And I was showing that the second fight, and I'll show it again in the third fight.
All right, Twine?
Yeah, so you mentioned we were talking as far as what this card could be with if they try to maximize it to its best as far as making it your trilogy, Teofimo Lopez, Cambosis, as well as your brother being on the card possibly. Would you go into some of the other prospects coming out of Australia right now? We know Tim Ju, of course, but just to give us an overall your synopsis of the Australia boxing scene and some of the guys that we should be watching here in the States or keeping an eye out on.
Yeah, I'll give it a shot. I'm gonna leave a few out, and apologies to anyone that I missed, but we've got some great talent. Liam Wilson, Liam Paro, obviously George Cambosis, Tim Zhu, Sam Goodman's a good up-and-coming fighter. We've got other guys that are, close to like world level, close to getting the opportunities for world titles, such as super middleweights, Jade Mitchell, Bill Alakwa, who's been inactive lately, Paul Murdoch. Ben Martin's a great fighter coming up as well. It's super welterweight. We've got a lot of good guys coming through. I've missed a few definitely. Bruno Tarimo, who's a stablemate of mine, he's been fighting super featherweight, but he's going to drop down to super bantamweight now, and he's a absolute wrecking machine. He's the fittest guy I've ever seen in the ring, and he's going to break everyone down at super bantamweight, and I believe he can win a world title at that weight. So he's another one to keep an eye on.
Okay.
Now, should Teofimo Lopez and your friend get this fight going, is there any reason that we should believe that Teofimo would have any trouble there? Tell us a little something. Who would you like in that fight?
Oh, well, George is a great fighter, and he's extremely dedicated. Like, he trains, 365 days of the year. He's a real workhorse, so I've got to give him credit for that. He puts in a lot of hard work, and gone over to America and based himself there for his fights and worked his way up the ratings, and now he's earned his shot as a mandatory challenger. So you've got to give him credit for that, and he's obviously – anything can happen in boxing. He can win the fight, but Teofimo Lopez is an exceptional talent, and it's a big ask because he's a great fighter, and I believe one of the pound-for-pound best at the moment. I was there live when he fought Lomachenko, and I was tipping Lomachenko to win that fight, but he showed how good he was that night, and I was extremely impressed by just how strong he was too. Being there live with no real crowd, I think there's only 100 people there or so, you could really hear his shots landing. Every shot, there was a big thud behind it, and he's got some serious pop. So it's going to be a very big ask for George to win that fight, but he's a fellow Aussie, so I've got to give him, show my respect and hope that he has a chance to pull it off.
Okay. Haven't been there that night. Afterwards, Lomachenko has made some comments. Having seen it in person, what do you make of his comments that the judges might have been paid off? Now, I think that maybe that he did another interview later where he claimed he was misquoted on that. But let's just go off of that. What I read, he had said that they might have been a little iffy there. Having seen it live, what do you think?
I had no doubt on the night that Teofimo had won quite wide. I think I had it maybe like 9-3 on the night. And then I was shocked when I saw people's comments online saying that they thought it was a draw, and some people even thought Lomachenko won. I was shocked because they're live. It looked completely different. I've watched it again on replay, and I think it was a bit closer than what I saw on the night. Watching it on TV, it looked a little bit different, but I still had Teofimo winning by at least a round or two. And I hope that those quotes from Lomachenko were misinterpreted, because I'm a huge Lomachenko fan. I've loved following his career since way back in the amateur days. I watched him fight live, and yeah, the quotes, what he was said to have said in the after that fight was pretty disappointing. The way that some of the things he said, and trying to say that it was the judges were paid and things like that. I hope he was misquoted, because it's pretty disappointing to hear him talk like that. I think he lost that fight fair and square.
Okay, so being that you've been in a rematch yourself with Franco going into a trilogy, would you want to see a rematch with Lomachenko and Teofimo Lopez, seeing that you saw it differently the second time you watched this fight? Do you think the fight is worthy of a rematch?
Yeah, I think it's probably worthy of a rematch. Whether or not Lomachenko's shoulder injury had anything to do with the way he fought, I'm not sure. But he definitely he barely threw a punch in the first half of that fight, which was very strange. The way he fought in the second half of the fight makes me think that a rematch would be a great fight, and Lomachenko could possibly win a rematch. But I personally think that the shoulder didn't really have anything to do with it. I think he felt Teofimo's power early on in that fight and was hesitant in coming in and closing the distance. So I believe Teofimo won that fight fair and square, and I would rather see him go on now and fight Gervonta Davis or Devin Haney or Ryan Garcia. I think the lightweight division's stacked at the moment, and I'm just excited to see all those guys fight each other, and I hope those fights happen.
Speaking of Ryan Garcia, a couple Saturdays ago, he had a huge victory over the best opponent he's faced to date. What did you think of Ryan's performance?
Yeah, I'll give him credit for that. That was a great performance by Ryan. I probably thought that Luke Campbell might edge that fight going into it. I wasn't sure if Ryan Garcia was just all hype and if he really was that good, but it was actually good to see him get up off the canvas and show that he has got heart and he is a true fighter. And I think it was a really good performance from him that night, and makes me interested to see him face the other top guys in that division. I find it interesting that he's now mandatory for Devin Haney, but instead of taking that fight, he seems to be dead set on fighting Gervonta Davis next, which he's got balls wanting to fight Gervonta Davis because he can punch, and that's definitely a dangerous fight, but one I'm really interested in seeing.
I am too. The only problem with that is, and I agree with you, I would, if I was his team, I would much rather fight Devin Haney than a Tank Davis, simply because even though he's 5'10", he has a 3-inch reach advantage. Ryan doesn't fight in the type of way that's going to keep Tank from closing the distance. And if they get inside, Tank's going to land some brutal power punches. And I just don't. I see that ending bad for Ryan. And I want to see Ryan succeed because, let's face it, he's got the best chance to become the next face of boxing. Unfortunately, because he's got 8.1 million Instagram followers, 3.5 million TikTok followers, He is this social media giant when it comes to boxing. When it comes to social media, problem is, the little girls and the other, the little kids and the housewives, they're not the ones buying the pay-per-views, and you know what I mean. They don't know anything about boxing, so I want Ryan to succeed, but at the same time, I look at Ryan and I see some things like, man, he's got to do something about his chin. What do you think they need to work on him with about getting that chin tucked? I'm sorry.
Yeah, I mean, he got dropped, but it was a good shot, even though Campbell's not a known puncher. He got up from that knockdown and went straight after Luke Campbell. So he didn't seem too hurt when he got up. It was just sort of a flush knockdown. I agree. He's great for the sport. He brings a big following. But I also agree on the other point, if that following does transfer over to pay-per-views and ticket sales. But he's definitely great for the sport. And I'll give him credit for wanting to backing himself and wanting to take on Gervonta Davis, who's definitely probably, top 1 or 2 in that division, and wanting to test himself. I think it's a harder fight than the Devin Haney fight. So I'll give him credit for wanting to test himself. And it's a dangerous fight. You're correct. But I hate that boxing these days is all about everyone wanting to protect that unbeaten record. Good on him for wanting to take on the best. And if he loses to Gervonta Davis, then there's still some big fights out there for him. And I don't think it's the end, the end of the world if he does take a loss on his record. I think we should change the way we look at boxing, and we want the best to fight the best, and we need to drop that whole undefeated thing being the be all and end all, because that's what's stopping these big fights from happening.
I definitely agree.
Yes.
I have another question I want to get your perspective on, just because we're talking about the 135 division with this last question. It seems it's a lot easier to make fights in, the lower weight classes where you are super flyweight, as compared to what we're dealing with the 135 with the politics and, the guys trying to protect their own more. What do you think necessarily are some of the factors in that? Because like I said, in the lower weight classes, the guys fight each other. It doesn't seem to be as big as issue to get these fights done. But when you start moving up past 130, like it's always some kind of drama behind it to where it's not going to get done. So I just want to know what your take is on that and what you think some of the factors that contribute to that are.
Good question. I really don't know. Maybe it's because those guys get paid more than us little fellas, so they're trying to protect that O to make as much money as they can. I mean, don't get me wrong, I want to be paid well as well, but we're fighters, and at the end of the day, and the fans want to see the best fight the best. And you're right, it happens at the lighter weight divisions, but we don't get the credit that we deserve for making those fights and for how good, these lighter weight divisions are. I believe, maybe being a little bit biased, but I believe the super flyweight division is one of, if not the best, most stacked weight divisions in boxing at the moment, alongside maybe lightweight division. But we don't get the credit we deserve, I believe, but that's my opinion.
I agree, but you do hear, and speaking of the best fighting the best, in your division, I believe in March, there is a huge fight, which I believe you'll be interested in. The Juan Estrada takes on Chocolatito.
Mm-hmm.
Now, if I remember right, when I went back and looked, you were talking about possibly fighting Chocolatito before the Franco fight. Is that still something you would be interested in?
Yeah, absolutely. He's the super champion, and I will soon be the regular champion. So I'd absolutely love the opportunity to fight Chocolatito. He's one of the best, for the last probably 10 years or so, one of the best lighter weight fighters, and still is the biggest name in my division. So I'd absolutely love the opportunity to fight him. He's a legend of the lighter weight divisions, and I'd love to test myself against him. Him and Estrada is a fight that I'm really looking forward to. Their first fight was amazing. I've watched that fight maybe 10 times myself, and even though these guys are in my division, I'm a big fan of boxing, and I'm a fan of both those guys. They're two of my favorite fighters, and I'm not afraid to say that, even though they're in my division. I'd love the opportunity to fight them both, but I believe they are both two of the best in the sport right now.
How do you see that fight panning out as far as the rematch, or who would you favor in this rematch coming up between them?
Yeah, it's an interesting one. Before their last fights, they both fought on the same night, late last year. Can't remember what month it was, but before that, I was tipping Estrada to win the second time around. But after watching that fight, both those fights, and the way they both performed that night, I actually thought the Chocolatito looked the better of the two. And for some reason, I think maybe Estrada, wanting to please the Mexican crowd, just stood toe-to-toe with Cuadras and took a lot of shots and got dropped himself in that fight. And if he fights like that, I believe that Chocolatito will take him apart.
Now, this is even being at a bigger weight class, because when they fought originally, it was at 108, I believe, right?
Yeah, I believe that's right.
Do you think Chocolatito will have that same effect as the first fight, being that you guys are in super flyweight class now? Yeah,
I believe the fight can definitely go either way, 100%. It's a sort of coin toss type of fight, and as I said, like a month or two ago, I would have thought that Estrada was going to win. Right now, I'm probably leaning slightly towards Chocolatito, but it's definitely going to be an interesting fight and one I can see going either way. So I'm definitely looking forward to watching it.
Okay. I am too. So you would favor Chocolatito. I think at this point, I want to take Chocolatito because I'm like you. These are two of my favorite fighters at the moment. They've been two of my favorite fighters for quite a while now. I love the lower weight divisions. I want to take Chocolatito, but I would have to favor Estrada at this point in their career.
Yeah, I agree on that part. I mean, Estrada was fighting at 112 and came down to 108 to fight Chocolatito originally as an inexperienced fighter, and he's like much better. Gotten even better. So I'd probably favor Estrada right now too, being at a higher weight class that fits him. But I think Chocolatito I don't think Chocolatito he should be in the lower division. Like, he's one of the smaller guys at super flyweight, but with his pressure and his style, he overcomes that. So you have to be impressed with it still.
Yeah, no, I wouldn't argue with that. Like, I can see Estrada winning the fight too. But as I said, I think it can go either way, and just based off their last performance, I'm just slightly edging Chocolatito, but I wouldn't be surprised if Estrada pulls it off.
Speaking of their last performance, there was a point in that fight where Cuadras actually got robbed of 26 seconds, I want to say it was. And it was right after he had either dropped or really hurt Estrada in that fight. Your fight, I believe you guys had a long delay from the time that you guys were supposed to start due to a college football game, right? Then there's been a lot of crazy stuff going on with the wrong people getting announced as the winner, replay not working. Having been in that type of situation, how was it to deal with that delay? Because I'm sure you're like, who cares about this American football game? I want to go out there and fight for my title.
Yeah, that's right. It was definitely very strange. Like, I'd never heard of that happening before. We got told that we're going to be on, I think it was like 7 o'clock on the dot, and not being live on TV. Normally they are very strict on getting you out the door exactly on time. And then I was warmed up, ready to go, and they said, "No, hold on, the football game's just about to finish. We got to hold on a little bit." And then we were waiting for I think it was like half an hour for them to finish this game, and we're going, "Who cares about this game? Like, are they serious?" Like, it was very strange. Like, that does not happen over here in Australia, where you'd hold on a fight because of another sport's being played. But it's certainly a different experience, but it didn't affect me too much. Like, we still had the opportunity to warm up again and be ready to go by the time I got in that ring. So that didn't really affect me too much, but it was certainly a strange experience.
Imagine. Well, we've been blessed to have you on for 34 minutes. I've asked pretty much every question that I had. Twine, is there anything else that you wanted to get from him before you? I
was asking him about how the preparation was as far as not getting cold. before the fight, So, I mean, he covered that. That was going to be my final question.
All right. Well, Andrew, I want to thank you for coming on and doing the interview with us once again. Good luck. I hope you get that rematch, and I hope to see you with the title next time.
Thank you, guys. Thanks for having me on. It's a pleasure talking to you both.
Thanks for coming on.
All right. It's fine. We'll be continuing talking with our topics here. It was nice for Andrew to come on.
Definitely a good interview, man.
That was an amazing interview. Well, he's still on. Let's see. Do you want to stay on with us and talk some boxing? We got some topics to talk. I didn't know if you wanted to take off or
a couple more minutes, and then I'll go to head off. But I can stay for a couple more minutes.
Okay. All right. Well, let's get into our topics. Moving forward, a couple weeks ago, we saw the return of the pound-for-pound king, Canelo Alvarez, took on Liam Smith. Put together a very, very impressive performance, in my opinion. The most impressive he's looked in quite a while, even though he didn't get the knockout. He looked every bit the number one pound-for-pound fighter in the world, in my opinion. Dominated Callum Smith, a very quality opponent, a true champion, and defended his straps. I know a lot of people had thought that he had lost to John Ryder, I believe it was. Twine, what did you think of Canelo? And after you answer that, we'll go to Andrew, and then we'll talk about where we see him going forward.
I definitely agree with you as far as this has been his most dominant performance in a while. As far as, I saw something different from Canelo as far as him being consistent for 12 rounds. Like, that's something we don't see from him generally. And he put it on Callum for 12 rounds this time completely. Even though you may look at the final punch stat and be like, okay, this is still a low output. He walked forward, he pressed. Like, this is something we haven't seen from Canelo. He's generally just the counter puncher. He lulls people into him and let them come to him. But he actually pressed the action against the bigger fighter. I was definitely impressed with the performance. So, he definitely stamped his claim as far as being the number one pound for pound with this. I know many people, I don't agree with it, but many people had Callum Smith as being the top guy at 168 based on the World Boxing Super Series, which I don't necessarily agree with. But, he came out there and stamped his claim. He came and took the title dominantly. So, it was a great performance. And like you said, it was one of his best performances ever because he put on a full 12-round performance.
Agree.
I'm not quite sure as far as Callum's preparation. I don't know if he was fighting to survive. We had an interview with Roger Romo where we were talking about how he looked at the weigh-in. And, this was a fight that was on short notice to where he had 4 weeks to prepare. And we both said, I and Roger Romo both said he was training just to make weight. And it's been talked about since then that he's moving to 175. So, I don't know how to play that into the whole thing. I'd love to get Andrew's answer on this with the short preparation, the 4-week notice, because he's a fighter himself. But I definitely agree. Canelo stamped his claim, and he came out there and did what he had to do.
Okay. Andrew, speaking of that 4-week notice, that is a short notice to fight someone the caliber of Canelo Alvarez. How much did that, you believe, how much did that play a part in it, do you believe?
Yeah, it's hard to say. That's the only thing that sort of puts a little bit of a cloud over that win by Canelo is that Smith only had about 4 or 5 weeks to prepare. I know that he knew his name was sort of being talked about as Canelo opponent, so he would have been in the gym for obviously longer than that, but it's different being in the gym and then actually knowing this is your fight date. So he definitely didn't have a full preparation, which is a bit of a shame. That's the only thing that sort of took a bit of shine off that win because Canelo looked absolutely amazing in that fight. Like, Canelo's been my favorite fighter in the sport for quite a while now, but I think after that win, there can't be any arguments that he's pound for pound number one. I think his resume and the way he's going up divisions and just taking guys out is really impressive. And I believe that was one of his best performances that night. his upper body movement and the way he can just sit in front of someone and just make him miss, and almost looks like he sees everything in slow motion. His defense is unbelievable now. And the way he went forward and really broke down a much bigger guy. I mean, Callum Smith is a big 168, and Canelo is quite small for that weight division. Obviously, coming up the divisions, he is going to be a lot smaller than these guys at super middleweight. So him being able to come forward and just break Callum Smith down like that was really impressive. And one of the things that really impressed me the most was how he targeted Smith's left arm with that
I was just about to ask you that, because there was a bit of, some people had a problem with it. I didn't. I was, I guess, boxing. I thought it was brilliant, and I wanted to get your perspective on that.
I think it was an amazing game plan, because if you watch Callum Smith, I've known him since the amateurs, so he will always catch and counter with a big left hook, and he's knocked heaps of guys out with that shot. That's what he hurt George Groves in the final of the Super Series, and that's sort of like his trademark counter. And Canelo just took that away from him by just busting that arm up and making it so he couldn't throw it. So I thought that was a really smart game plan, and you could see the size of his arm after that fight. Canelo must have some serious power to do that with gloves on.
Agreed. Do you think that's a little dirty? Because there were some people like, that's dirty fighting. I think it's always been part of boxing. Certain fighters, if you go back into the glory, the old and golden era, they did it. Do you think it's dirty at all?
No way. I mean, we're trying to punch each other in the face and knock each other out. He's punching him in the arm. You can punch me in the arm any day of the week over hitting me in the face. So I think it's the opposite. I think it was a smart move to take away his best counter shot. And I mean, it's a legal punch. Nothing dirty about it, in my opinion.
I mean, even John David Jackson, like, he's good. I've looked at some of his interviews in the past, ex-trainer for Sergey Kovalev. And he's like, as far as the shoulder roll defense for Floyd, that Floyd Mayweather used to be known for, he's like, you hit that shoulder, you hit that arm. So, I mean, this is something he preached. So I was like, it's nothing dirty about it. As Malachi mentioned, it's something that's just been part of boxing, even during the glory years. What I was impressed about most is, Callum actually had the record at that weight division for throwing the most jabs in the fight, and Canelo actually out-jabbed him, which isn't usually a stronger punch for him. So, I mean, I think that was probably my biggest takeaway, other than him putting on a full 12 rounds and stalking a bigger guy. The jab, that was very incredible to see him out-jab a guy that's 6'3".
Yeah, absolutely. With the size difference that there was, to be able to out-jab Callum Smith, that was, really impressive.
I think a lot of people, they had a problem, and they were questioning Callum's performance. They claiming Callum put in a lackluster performance. The problem is that people don't understand that Canelo Alvarez makes you hesitant to throw punches, because when you throw a punch and if you don't connect and he times it right, he's coming back again with power. And we've seen what he did to his arm. So imagine getting caught in the face or in the chin, with those power punches. He makes you where he don't want to throw punches. How do you, if you were having to fight someone with that type of counter punching ability, what would you do to counteract it?
Yeah, well, it's not just that. It's his head movement, which he makes guys miss. And I think Callum Smith realized that early in the fight, that every time he threw any sort of, decent punches or tried to put his punches together, Canelo was just making him miss with everything. So I think the only way around that is to start shooting your shots at their chest, because that doesn't move anywhere near as much as the head does. So once you can start landing on the chest and sort of freezing them, then you can start looking to land shots on the head. But, Canelo's head movement is exceptional these days.
All right. Well, our next topic, there was news today that I think news came out yesterday that Teofimo Lopez said that if the fight in Australia cannot be made, they have already made an offer to Devin Haney. And I believe they were claiming it was for $5 million. Now, Eddie Hearn came back today and said that Teofimo himself had asked for $10 million and he was out of his mind, basically. I would favor Teofimo in that fight. I'm beginning to hear a lot of clamor for it. A lot of people want to see it. I think 10 million is a little bit much at this point for Teofimo, as much as I respect him.
5 million is a bit much for him, considering, I mean, he didn't get that close to that for even Lomachenko. And there's not many guys making 5 million that aren't on pay-per-view right now. So, I mean, I think it's outlandish of him, but I'll let you finish what you're saying, Malachi.
Well, I mean, I'm saying that it is if that is true, that is a lot of money. But he does have all the belts. I mean, there's still. You think that they're asking for that much money from Eddie Hearn and them because they know that DAZN pays so much to their fighters? I'll either one of you.
Jump in there. So I think did you see the interview where Teofimo was actually talking to Eddie Hearn and him and his dad said, we want 10 million. And Eddie said, yeah, I think we can do that.
Oh,
so now Eddie's going back on his word and saying they can't do 10 million. That's way too much. Well, I mean, I know it wasn't like a proper negotiation. We can do that. So
yeah, but Eddie says a lot of stuff that I don't think Eddie necessarily means to. I respect Eddie as a promoter. He's a hustler. He's not the hustler that Bob is, but hey, that is quite a bit. Now yeah. let's say they were able to work this out. Who would you like in that fight? Would you like Teofimo or would you like Devin Haney?
No, after that, both their last fights, I'd tip Teofimo Lopez to win that fight quite comfortably. I think he looked exceptional against Lomachenko, and Devin Haney didn't have a great night against Gamboa. It was a bit of a underwhelming performance.
Now, let me ask you what makes you think that Haney's performance was lackluster? Because me and Malachi actually have touched on this before, as far as like the guys like Shakur Stevenson and Devin Haney, the younger guys, like they're never going to be knockout artists. Like they're not power punchers. They're more technical and technically sound. Like they're never going to get credit for what they actually do. Because, I mean, I thought Haney looked spectacular. Like he dominated the fight. Of course, it was against an older Gamboa. But I'm like, he's never going to get credit for that style. Shakur Stevenson's never going to get credit for his style. They're both real technically sound boxers. Did that play any factor in as to what you're thinking as far as who looked better?
No, I know what you're saying. I think you're right. They're not knockout artists, and they're never probably going to be. And that's what a lot of people probably want to see guys knock people out. But you're right. They're both exceptional boxers. I just expected Devin Haney probably to outbox Gamboa with a lot more ease than what he did that night.
Okay.
But going back, like I think the reason why Teofimo is wanting so much money is probably because it's known that DAZN and Eddie Hearn have overpaid a lot of guys in the past, and for millions of dollars, and maybe 10 might be a little bit too much to ask for, but he does have all the belts, and I believe he deserves to be well paid for that fight. But yeah, maybe 10 million might be a little bit too much.
I mean, I've been looking at articles recently as far as there's been some stagnation in the talks with George Kambosos, even for Teofimo, because it might come down to his money amount that he wants right now. I mean, considering we're still in the pandemic, and like, what do you think about this kind of thing as far as the demands? I mean, do you think as far as Teofimo, he deserves that kind of amount based on where he's at right now, being questionably the undisputed, but we'll touch on that as well. Do you think that's a proper demand for him right now?
Yeah, so I mean, that's probably a difficult one at the moment, is because he has all the belts, just beat who a lot of people consider the number one pound for pound fighter in Lomachenko. He probably is wanting a lot of money to fight these days, and with the pandemic, it's going to be hard to generate that kind of money without live crowds, or even with live crowds. So yeah, I've heard the same thing, that maybe the Kambosos fight is starting to have a few problems with the negotiations, but I believe the IBF has also mandated that it is his mandatory defense, and I believe he probably will have to fight George Kambosos, whether it's over here or in America or wherever else they want to do it, or he might be stripped of his IBF title.
Okay, so let me ask you this one, because it definitely plays into the Teofimo situation and a lot of things going on in boxing right now. There's an argument now as far as who is him being undisputed, because Devin Haney was given a 135 belt when Lomachenko decided not to fight him, and they created the WBC franchise designation. That there's only a couple guys that have it at all. Canelo and Lomachenko were the only ones. What do you think of this WBC franchise belt and the problems that it actually seems to be bringing to boxing right now, to where like Devin Haney's not credited for being a WBC champion because he was mandated to fight him, but they refused to fight. They've refused to fight to go on to something else. So, what do you think of this whole WBC franchise entitlement or designation?
It's a tricky one. I don't know. It's pretty messy now. In my eyes, Teofimo is undisputed champion. Lomachenko was the WBC champion before they elevated him to franchise champion, which I don't really know why. So he beat the man who was the champion and held all the other belts. So in my eyes, Teofimo is undisputed champion. But you're right, it's created a bit of a mess now with Devin Haney being also considered WBC champion. So I suppose at some stage he probably is going to have to fight Devin Haney to get rid of that argument that is the other side of the argument that Devin Haney is the other champion. But in my eyes, he's undisputed champion.
I agree. And I the thing is, so what causes so much confusion is when they created the franchise belt, they told us you can't fight for the franchise belt, but then it became convenient for that fight. Suddenly you could win the franchise title. And I'm going to say he's undisputed because when I went to the WBC website before that fight, when they were advertising it on their website, it said undisputed for the undisputed lightweight world championship. So that meant to me that the WBC was stating the belt that Lomachenko had was a greater version of the one that Devin Haney has. I would love to see the fight. And people get mad at me, get confused, because I'll say this. If you ask me, does Teofimo have to fight Devin Haney to be considered undisputed? In my opinion, no, because of the circumstances we've already laid out here. Devin Haney received his by email. Therefore, if he does not fight Devin Haney, to me, I'm not going to say he's ducking Devin Haney because it doesn't make no sense. He's already got the belt that Devin Haney has. They fought the pound for pound king. At the time, a lot of people thought he was the pound for pound king. You know what I mean? However, I want to see that fight as much as anybody else. I too would favor Teofimo. I think he's a level above Devin Haney right now. I think that there's a possibility he could stop Devin Haney, although most likely I would see it going into decision. There are some things that Devin Haney could do that could give Teofimo some issues, but I think they're nothing that Teofimo couldn't overcome. And if Teofimo was able to outbox a master boxer in Lomachenko, if it came down to him having to outbox Devin Haney, I could see that possibly happening as well, even though their styles are a little bit different. Twine, do you feel that he has to fight Devin Haney, or if he doesn't, is that a duck?
Personally, I'm kind of more. I hate the sanctioning bodies for what they're doing right now with the creation of these belts. More specifically, just the WBC. I have a problem with the WBA as well for creating the Super World title and the regular. But to me, I feel like to be undisputed, I think Teofimo needs to fight Haney. Like you said, originally this franchise designation was something that you couldn't transfer over or fight for. And I go by that. And people are giving Devin Haney flack, for the whole email, you received your belt by email, but it's not like he avoided Lomachenko. He wanted to fight. They created this designation for Canelo and Lomachenko specifically. And the fact that you don't see it in other weight divisions is even more problematic for me. So that's why I feel like Teofimo Lopez needs to fight Devin Haney. Teofimo saying claims that, Devin Haney needs to step it up and do X, Y, Z. If he's an easy fighter and all that, just take the fight and beat him and shut him up.
Well, they did offer him the fight. Let's not pretend he didn't. And we may not like the offer because of the money, but they did offer him the fight. That's up to Eddie Hearn and their management whether or not they want to take that fight for what they were offered or whatever. I will never be one to hate on a person for getting what they think they deserve in this business, because you better believe the promoters are going to get out of you what they want. So you better get what you can get. Andrew, make as much money as you possibly can on every contract. In my opinion, I'm never going to hold that against anybody. But it is a fight I'm very interested in seeing. But we'll move on from that. Our last topic of the night is the fight on the 23rd, a fight that was supposed to take place back in August. That is between the bantamweight WBO bantamweight champion Angelo Leo and the challenger Cool Boy Steph Fulton. I was going into that fight favoring Cool Boy back then, but Leo really put in a really quality performance against Tremaine Williams, who was a lot alike Fulton in many areas of his game. I don't think he's quite as good, but Leo was pretty dominant in that fight. I believe you were favoring Fulton in that fight, Twine. Was there anything Leo showed you that would change your mind?
Actually, not at all. I mean, I still would favor Fulton going into the fight. I think he has some intangibles at that weight class that you just can't. The 70-inch reach, at super bantamweight, that's incredible. I think he might be able to. He's not a power puncher, so I think Leo might be able to create some problems as far as pressuring him, because he's not necessarily considered a power puncher, but like that reach and his size at super bantamweight, I still feel like he can overcome him. But the closer the fight gets, I am still I'm starting to have more questions about it stylistically, just because Fulton lacks a little bit of power. He's not a pop puncher. And that's something that will favor Leo as far as his style. And of course, the political affiliations as far as Leo being a Mayweather fighter, and we've seen gift decisions all the time in boxing. So those kind of things have been on my mind lately as far as this fight. So I'm starting to lean towards more 50-50, but before I had it definitely Fulton winning. But it is starting to become closer to me as far as the fight, when the fight is actually approaching now.
Yeah. Actually, I think I changed my mind. We'll go to Andrew. I'm going to take Leo in this fight. I came into the other fight and I was favoring Fulton, Cool Boy. And I still think that there's, I'm right there with you that there's an excellent chance for him to win the fight. But Leo really impressed me. I think he's going to be able to maintain that pressure. I think he's going to be able to control the fight and keep it where he wants it, which is in the inside. And I think that, he'll just win a decision, and then it'll be one of them fights that it's hard to look pretty in. And as you stated, if it is a close fight, most likely it's going to go to Floyd Mayweather's fighter. Andrew, are you familiar with these two fighters?
I'm familiar with Fulton. I've seen him for quite a while. I haven't seen that much of Leo, so it's I can't really take an accurate pick in this fight. But from what I have seen of Fulton, is extremely skillful. So the little bit of Leo that I've seen, he looks strong, but I haven't seen much of him. I don't know if he's going to be able to handle the skill level of Fulton. So I'll definitely be tuning in to watch that fight, but yeah, it's hard for me to pick that one because I haven't seen enough of Leo.
Malachi,
seen,
we had to touch on with Andrew for sure is the other fight that happened on New Year's. I know he's going to have an interesting take on that one.
Oh yes, there is a fight that happened on New Year's, and should have been our leadoff because that was a massive fight for those of us who follow the lower weight divisions. Kosei Tanaka attempted to win his 4th division title, which would have made him the fastest in boxing history. But the more experienced champion, Kazuto Ioka, turned in a performance, one of the best performances of his career. Did you catch that fight, Andrew?
Yeah, I did actually. I watched that live on New Year's, and I was very surprised. They're both great fighters, but I thought that the younger, faster Tanaka was going to win that fight. But
don't do that, Andrew. We all whipped on it. We all whipped on our assumptions on that one.
We picked that fight. And we all picked Tanaka except for one person. We had like 8 people on our panel, so don't feel bad.
Yes, but yeah, we were all very wrong. Ioka put in a great performance, a real veteran performance. He used his jab really well and just controlled the fight and really shut Tanaka down. He had no answer, and he did it with ease. So great performance by Ioka. Another one in the stacked super flyweight division, and another one that I hope to share the ring with one day.
Well, that's a possibility because after the fight, he did mention the possibility of moving up. I think more though his desire would be to fight a Chocolatito or the Estrada winner at this point. But he did mention moving up into your division. So should you get a title, I'm sure that if it's a possibility, that would be an awesome fight.
Yeah, absolutely. He's already a 4 division champion. So whether he can move up again, that's going to be a big ask. But yeah, if he does stay at super flyweight, it's definitely a fight I'd love to have in the future. Once I take care of Franco.
Okay. Twine, what did you think of that fight?
You know what I was actually impressed with? Ioka countering. Like he couldn't miss with the left. Like he couldn't miss with the left or the right hook. Like once he got his timing down, it was over with. Because Tanaka I thought Tanaka controlled the early rounds. And I mean it was back and forth pretty much as far as he was getting their output out and landing. It was back and forth, but I thought Tanaka was controlling the early rounds. But once Ioka got his timing down, like he couldn't miss with his counters. I mean, that was there all night for him.
Those knockdowns were dramatic looking, weren't they? Yeah. The one time he made him do almost a cartwheel. I was like, wow. Did you think that maybe Tanaka should maybe consider moving back down in weight?
I've always been shocked that he could make flyweight. If you watch him at the weigh-in, he's absolutely couldn't be any leaner. He's got no body fat on him at all. And again, probably looked even more ripped. He seemed to put on a lot of muscle in the prep between these 2 fights for his first fight at super flyweight. And I think he's going to have trouble moving if he wants to move back down now. Because he did seem to put on a bit of muscle in between those 2 fights. So I think that's going to be very hard for him. But at the same time, it might be something he wants to do because that was his first fight at super flyweight, and he has moved up 3. That was his 4th division. So, and obviously he didn't have success in that fight. So that's possibly he will look to move back down, but I think it's going to be hard for him to do that.
Would you like to fight him over in Japan?
Yeah, absolutely. I'd love to go to Japan, and especially that New Year's Eve fight, that fight night that they do every year is something I'd love to be a part of one day.
All right. Well, we've been on for an hour. That's we're getting close to the end of our show. And Andrew, I want to thank you for coming on and staying and talking boxing with us. You want to tell everybody where they can follow you real quick on social media?
Yeah, for sure. You can follow me on all social media platforms at Andrew Moloney. Moloney spelled Moloney. And you can check out myself and my brother's website, teammoloney.com. And yeah, appreciate anyone who follows me and shows your support. Look out for me this year. It's gonna be a great year, and keep an eye on this trilogy fight against Franco. It's gonna be one to watch.
100% agree. All right, everybody. From me and Twine, we're gonna say goodnight, and we'll be back Friday with another show. We don't have a guest yet, so it may just be me and Twine. But regardless, we're gonna get into some boxing, and y'all have a wonderful rest of your week.